very, very big hearing on tomorrow featuring Mr. Strzok, and a lot of people are wondering why we can't all hear it, because he can. He's concerned as well. He thinks everybody should listen to what Mr. Strzok has to say, just for fresh air. Good to have you, Congressman.
Good to be on, Neil, and I absolutely agree. The lack of transparency has not served the country well in any of these matters, and so I think that when we've got the key people available to tell their story and respond to questions, that we ought to do that in the most open and transparent way possible. The president holds that view, I hold that view, but unfortunately it's a minority view here in the Congress.
What happened, though? I'm told that there were those at the FBI, including the president FBI director, who was concerned about Mr. Strzok speaking this way or in an open forum, and that some secrets could be compromised. So whose idea was this?
I don't know. I do know that Mr. Strzok is scheduled to come back to the Judiciary Committee in July, so it'll be a pretty aggressive schedule with Comey and Lynch and Strzok as potential witnesses that we want to hear more about. Also, Lisa Page, who was Strzok's girlfriend at the FBI.
So she's testifying in that follow-up one, right?
Correct, and we hope to have Mr. Strzok at an open hearing as well. So I don't know whose idea this was. I think it's a bad idea. I think that Mr. Strzok will be asked initially about the August 8, 2016 text message where he said no, he won't, we'll stop him regarding the Trump presidency. You'll recall that it was just 9 days before that he opened up on Papadopoulos, and just 6 days after that statement that he said there was an insurance policy against the Trump presidency. One thing that we'd like to really get to the bottom of is whether or not July 31st was truly the moment when the Trump investigation with Russia began, or whether or not there was intelligence collected on the Trump campaign previously. Those are questions that Mr. Strzok is uniquely qualified to answer, and I hope we learn more tomorrow.
So, Congressman, just to be clear here, there was a threat of a subpoena for him to testify. He volunteered, he came. So someone, you don't know who, decided it would be best that this be a closed-door affair. But it's your hope, just to clarify here, that in the next appearance, it's not that, right?
I hope all appearances are in the open. I opposed the Andrew McCabe deposition behind closed doors as well. I just don't think that doing things behind closed doors has served the country well. This is something Americans are focused on. They're smart. They know the facts, and we ought to ask the questions in front of the cameras.
One of the questions a lot of folks want to get clear from Mr. Strzok is what he knew and when he knew it. For example, in the context of his very disparaging remarks about then candidate Trump, was he privy, was Lisa Page privy to any information beyond their whatever personal contempt for then presidential candidate Trump was? That were they saying what they were saying in the context of some Russian rumors or collusions that would, you know, prompt this type of comment? What do you think?
Well, you're right. The question goes beyond just personal bias. The question is whether or not the bias of Peter Strzok manifested itself in the form of investigative decisions. Remember, Strzok was the lead investigator on the Hillary Clinton email investigation. He was on the FBI's investigation into President Trump and Russia, and then he was drafted onto the Mueller probe. So that's going 3 for 3. And we ought to know whether or not there was bias in terms of the prioritization of the Trump-Russia investigation over the Hillary Clinton email investigation. You'll recall that the Inspector General said that he was not sure that it wasn't bias that resulted in a tamping down of the investigation of Hillary Clinton and acceleration of the Trump investigation. That would be very improper, and only questioning will fully illuminate that fact pattern.
Congressman, I know you have a tight schedule, but I'm curious. I know a lot of comments and texts and individuals, obviously from Strzok to Lisa Page. Now we know about Andy McCabe and all, did not think very much of Donald Trump and all these other unidentified agents who similarly did not think much of Donald Trump. So I had a clear bias against the guy. I have as yet to run into, in all the studying, I haven't read nearly the volumes on this as you have, but in anything that I've read, not one agent that seemed to have a bias toward Donald Trump, liked Donald Trump.
I have not seen that either, and it's not just the agents, Neil, it's also the attorneys. You'll recall one attorney who also was on all 3 investigations was saying "Viva la resistance," literally associating himself with the resistance movement to the Trump presidency while he was serving at the Department of Justice and at the FBI, I should say. And so I think that we need to expose who these people are. We need to find out what evidence they handled, developed, what interviews they conducted, because you may see a lot of the evidence regarding the president president as the fruit of the poisonous tree if it was collected improperly or in the absence of compliance with the law.
Congressman, thank you. Very good seeing you again.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, you heard a little while ago from the Republican governor of Illinois who's